welcome to the Crew3 podcast. Most welcome, as always, are my co-hosts Chris and Ricky. Gentlemen, say hello.
Hey.
What up?
It's going good. We got potentially the last Pioneer RCQ of the season. I found out two stores in the Houston area snuck some in last minute, but
Nice.
I not sure if we'll be able to hit those up or not. So the boys got together. We RCQ.
Oh, yeah.
It was a good time. I found a Turbo Man.
I'm very excited about the Turbo Man. That's very fun.
Yeah, Turbo Man was pretty dope. I also got my brother some Christmas presents from the place across the way.
Nice, yeah. And then I talked to the store owner a bit about Grand Archive, which, man, I tell you what, if you don't follow me on Twitter, Grand Archive spoilers are going on right now, and there's some crazy stuff. I think I've been more excited about, 3 cards of the Grand Archive spoilers than I have in, thinking about just, deck design and deck building by just, Grand Archive cards than I have just in any of, the recent Magic spoiler seasons.
Sure.
Oh, man.
Grand Archive, they're pretty much changing the game, you know?
I've been kind of enjoying the train wreck that is Commander Masters.
Yeah. Get your Talrans, everyone.
We're going to print all the Eldrazi Titans, you know?
Yeah.
Ulamog, Kozilek. Those
All
are
of them.
all of them.
All of them.
It's unbelievable, just the random cards that are like Commander. When you think Commander, you think powerful cards that were overlooked, right? You think about not Rhystic Study. Nobody plays that card.
No. Who needs that?
And then it's we've got a premium deck for you. It's going to be a top tier deck. It's going to be $100, but you're going to be right in the Commander format. It's an aggressive Slivers deck. It's 5 colors.
Ooh.
And it comes with 20 tapped lands.
Do we get the special Sliver 5-color land?
No, you don't get that one.
Oh. How much is that card worth now?
$60.
Or if you were lucky and got a Secret Lair with one, it's what, $100 something or $300 or whatever?
Yeah, the first Sliver from Modern Horizons 1 jumped from $20 to $50 now.
Ooh.
Because everybody's well, clearly you put the Slivers in the Sliver deck. If you're going to charge people $100, it's got Slivers in it, right? No.
The $100 Planeswalker deck, though.
There's some
actually
cards
looks
in there.
good. The Planeswalker deck actually looks good. It has literally 3 tapped lands in the whole mana base. It has every mana rock you could possibly play. It has Karn's Bastion in the mana base. Chain Veil was included.
Another Chandra that you can't read the name of.
That's fine. We don't need to read. We just planeswalk.
Yeah. Also, the Chandra card that's everyone I lost. Nissa and Ajani.
And Jaya's on there, too.
Yeah, but,
Ajani's basically dead.
Is he?
No.
He's more alive than Nissa right now.
I know. I don't know. That card's kind of interesting. But the Planeswalker deck is hey, for the new cards, we decided to print cards that make it easier for you to do Planeswalker things.
Yeah.
Here's a guy that says you get a wall and players can only attack to the left, which Chris was oddly talking about on our trip home.
Yeah.
Chris was specifically talking about wanting cards that make players attack to the left or right.
Yeah, or across attack specific players or something like that.
So
just for politicking purposes.
And then I don't often plug his stuff, but Pleasant Kenobi released a great video today.
Okay.
Of 65 things you can purchase other than a Commander Masters box.
Oh, good.
They were pretty interesting. Top picks included 2 lifetime unlimited movie passes to whatever British cinema he goes to. Box seats at a soccer game for 2 players.
Nice.
An amount of caviar, which I thought was a funny turn. If we're gonna go luxury cardboard, let's go real luxury, right? Let's get some caviar.
Do it.
And then 7 of Board Game Geek's top 10 board games.
Speaking of prices, you know what I found out today about expensive booster boxes?
What?
Lorcana boxes are about $200.
I see. I saw worse prices than that for Lorcana.
Well, yeah, I'm sure the secondary markup is going on them, but the average price, like the regular price, is like $200 or something like that. And it's just like, boy, they are leaning into we're a collector game, but also the game is not great. I'm not. Look, we all know I was going to be in on Lorcana.
Right.
I'm not.
Well, I'm not now because the game looks garbage.
Yeah,
I'm glad Grand Archive came along to save me.
and like at least the One Piece game, like their packs are kind of regular price now, so
Mm,
hunting for shiny tokens is kind of fun.
yeah,
But Lorcana is going to be way too expensive to look for. Honestly, not that great looking cards. The cards don't look like fantastic.
You don't
yeah,
want to play with all of the cheaters of Magic's past at your big tournaments.
Speaking of other new card games coming on the market that shouldn't be,
okay.
I saw the Shadowverse card game.
Oh,
Oh my
the
god.
game that took like what 6 years to make it into paper.
It's just the app. It's just
Well,
the digital
yeah,
game. All the starter decks come with like a stack like this big of tokens. Every single creature in the game has a token version, so you
yeah.
can evolve it. None of the cards are double faced, so you don't just like flip it.
So it's reverse cryptic.
It is like it's like literally just like you know, could you play Hearthstone on paper? You
Yeah,
could. You
Right, right,
shouldn't, right?
right,
And they're
right.
like, we finally printed enough paper. We destroyed enough rainforest that you can play Shadowverse
well, as
in
pointed out in
paper.
the Discord, do you know who's the lead designer of Shadowverse Evolve?
Is it Shota?
It is Shota.
He also made We Cross.
Yeah, the waifu game.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But at least that was like an original design.
Yeah,
I don't know what they added to Shadowverse, right?
sure.
Because
Halo.
I saw like exact cards coming over from,
Halo.
and like they did not include in the first set two of the factions,
Uh-huh.
which thank God, because one of the factions they didn't include is Portalcraft, and
Mm.
their mechanic is whether or not you have resonance, and you have resonance whenever your deck is an even number.
Oh, good.
And I'm like, this would be absolute hell to play in paper.
Yeah.
You have to keep track of your deck every turn.
Uh-huh.
So they did not bring that faction over. So they thought a little bit, not very much. They thought a little bit.
So also real quick, kind of clean up step from last week. We won't really backtrack on mailbags, but I do think it was deserves to miss this. We were talking about rare land cycles in Pioneer. It was pointed out we didn't mention the hideaway lands.
Those only tap for one color.
Oh, so they're bad.
I don't know. I literally blank when I was asked what land cycle. I
Sure.
immediately only start thinking of like. Though I did think of Valakut. I don't know why I skipped those.
Yeah.
I mean, like only the white one is good, right?
Yeah. And we definitely mentioned them because I remember like specifically talking about like Slayer's Stronghold and like the Thalia Drown Yard. But the more I thought about like the Innistrad lands like Gavany and that, I was like, oh man, Wolfram would be so sweet in Pioneer.
Roll boats.
That's right, yeah.
Roll boats.
All right, so this week's episode, we are going to go ahead and cover. We got 3 events. We got 2 challenges. The Pioneer 5K from the SCG Open. I don't have deck lists for the team side of things, and also it's a little awkward talking about team events because it's like the Pioneer player can be carried by their teammates. So I usually don't like talking about team events. But we do have to quickly shout out that Discord member Wolfguard and his team and their team did top 16 that event. So give big congrats, round of applause. To Wolfguard there. Also,
Huge, great job.
Something else I want to quickly point out, and this was brought up by Kevman in the Discord, that if you are looking to continue your Pioneer play as the RCQ season winds down and want to keep getting involved and like go into online play and Explore, isn't that great? But hey, guess what? Explore Anthology 2 is back in the store until September. So you can give them money for Explore Anthologies again. But anyway, as Kevin pointed out, Pioneer prices, because RCQ season is about to be over, and a lot of grinders aren't worried about the format until like closer to December, with the regionals is. Pioneer card prices are going down on MitGo, and you can pretty much play a good chunk of the format for like a Mana Trader's $15 monthly subscription, or now is a good time to start just looking to pick up staples for Pioneer. So definitely think about as we go on into post Pioneer RCQ season and things like Modern starts to spin up. So
Well, this
thank
episode
you for pointing that out, Kev, man.
this episode will come out during the Pro Tour, right?
It'll come out on Friday. So is there a PT this weekend?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The Modern Pro
Pro
Tour this weekend.
Oh, Barcelona, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Over
didn't
under
know.
20 copies of the One Ring in top 8.
Ooh.
Over under 20 copies.
20 copies.
So 6 players would have to be playing 4 of them.
5 players. Is
5
20.
players.
So we need a
5
6th player to play
yeah.
1.
That's close. I think that's real close.
I think
I'm
20
under.
is like the right number. You're under. Ooh. Optimist.
No, I think it's 20. I think it's 20 or over. Like I could see some people maybe trying to get away with not trying to be like, oh, if there's some hot tech somebody discovers that's anti-ring, but there's not a ton of anti-ring tech that's not just Orcish Bowmaster, and then you would just want to play that anyway. Like you might just be playing both of them because there's a hot new Demir deck that plays both of those because like the big tech is like playing Shieldred in the One Ring.
Yeah.
Those 2 hold hands real good. Shieldred wears that ring with pride. You draw a bunch of cards, gain 1,000,000 life. It negates all.
You know it's a good card? Skullcrack.
Yep.
Skullcrack is a good card.
Big true. Big true. But yeah, we'll see what comes out of the Modern Pro. I'll be interested to watch because, like I said, I was kind of hoping to play Modern, but I'm not picking up a bunch of copies of the One Ring. It's just not something I feel like.
So,
some monkeys, but
yeah. This kind of also leads into, of course, August 7th is going to be our first yearly ban list. So not next week's episode, the week after, we're probably going to do some ban list discussion, talk about what we could see come off, what we could go on. So that not next week, the week after's episode will be the big kind of ban list focus episode. Also, that week will be is the 5th is also when they've said, hey, we'll have our big Gen Con panel. So I think that the following week's episode on like that week of the 7th when the ban list comes out, that'll be like ban list reaction plus whatever they talk about at Gen Con. So whether or not that's the next remastered set on Arena, they're like mentioning a bunch of technologies. Who knows? We'll get a better lineup of kind of also the sets coming after.
Seal Drain.
I do want to Seal Drain. I really want to Seal Drain.
I'm just gonna lay it out here. I've kind of been half interested in the Lord of the Rings set, and while I'm joking about the Commander Legend set, it's great because I don't care about it.
Sure.
So I'm just like sitting here like, man, it's kind of been a while since a Magic set's come out, right? I know, like, we're getting inundated in absolute garbage fire products right now, but like, if you're a Pioneer player, right?
Yeah.
You live in the life, right? You've been playing with what was the last set? March?
Yeah.
Great set. I guess Aftermath, right?
Yeah.
March was a great set, and you've just been like coasting on that high,
Yeah.
And I'm just now ready for the next set.
The Discord's been having a lot of fun with Historic, and while I will not indulge them, I will support them in their enjoyment of Historic. Apparently, Yogg is getting ready to pop off.
My only good thing to say about Historic is I think it's the only chance where we get any kind of reining in of the ring.
Sure.
There's no way that card gets banned. There's too much IP money in it. But
they've already sold all their packs, so the One Ring's been found, so we can ban it on August 7th.
I can see on Historic only making a errata to it, so it says a dex may only contain 1 copy of the One Ring.
One Ring.
I think they should do the first thing they've done ever, which is restrict a card, right? But not to 1 copy per player. Restrict it to the one guy who has the One Ring. If you have the PSA 9, not 10, PSA 9 Elvish version of the ring, you're allowed to play that one. But that's the only one. It's the One Ring. So
what if we just bring back like the old Legend rule, like the original Legend rule, just like I got mine out first.
If your opponent plays the ring, you lose the game.
Yeah.
right. How about just 1 Legend rule back so that if you play the ring, you'll get the cast trigger, right? And then both rings will die.
See, the problem is this doesn't work because we didn't already have like a 3 mana of the One Ring a couple sets before. That is the perfect answer to the 4 mana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bring back Planeswalker uniqueness rule.
Yeah. Then I mean, before we get going, also real quick, a million real quicks, right? But also that RCQ we played. Met a lot of awesome people who listen to the show. Met some people who are just now listening to the show. So thank you once again, Pioneer. Pioneer community is always great to be out and playing events with. I tell you what. Do we want to talk about our experience at the RCQ real quick before we
Yeah, I
dive
mean,
into the online events? So let's talk about. So let's go ahead and let's talk about our RCQ experience. We'll talk about these events, and then the episode's going to end up with kind of top 5 cards to think about playing. Top 5 cards you aren't playing, and then we'll probably do a similar thing again post ban list, thinking about, hey, here are some cards that are just now opened up because they banned X whatever cards. So yeah, Chris, why don't you go first?
on RCQ stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, we started off pretty hot. We started off 2-0, including we got turn 5 creativity in games 2 and 3 of round 1, and in game 2 there was nothing I could do, and in game 3 we had our one of soul partition. So
Well,
I used
real quick. What were you playing?
what's that?
You're just talking about.
I
What
was
were you
on Boros Pia. I was on
Okay.
Boros Pia. Obviously, I'm on the Pia deck. No, we had a lot of discussions about whether or not we were gonna play Phoenix or not. So I should have brought that up first. But I'm on the Boros Pia deck. The deck's kind of evolved a little bit. I think we're getting a little bit too cute out there because I think like you do want to come out fast. And then what I like about the Ren's Resolve stuff is that it gives you some extra reach. So I was just on kind of a stock list. I had some Bone Crusher Giants, which I think were fine. A one of Soul Partition, but
That is not what you thought during the weekend.
No, but I mean, like they were okay, right? Like they were a 4/3 body, which I thought was nice.
Pulling teeth to get Chris to play real cards in his deck.
No. I'm right on this. A lot of people are cutting the card entirely, and again, I think it's a cheap card that you can play. People are starting to pick up Runaway Steamkin, which has been pretty fun, but it does slow your deck down a little bit. I wouldn't be cutting 1-drops for that, but if you want to cut Bone Crusher Giant for it, I suppose you could.
People are playing. Anyway. I've seen some people playing. What's the white 1-drop?
Oh yeah, the thing that gets +1/+1 when you play.
Hopeful. I was thinking like Hopeful Initiate.
Oh, Hopeful Initiate. I like Hopeful Initiate. I think that's a card that you could play depending on how many of like the kind of greedy Karuga deck is running around.
Yeah,
there's a local player named Jacob who has been so far nice, cordial, good to play against, and plays at every RCQ I've seen him. And there's a local player here in the Austin area named Sam who plays it. So like if you've got a lot of either whatever. Like mono white that plays ossification or the Karuga deck running around, I think it's totally fine to main deck that card. I think you can kind of modify to what you're expecting to see. But round 1, like I said, we got lucky off finding the exiling the worm, which meant that was just GG. There was nothing that opponent could do at that point. Round 2, I play against I think Amanda Cassidy, and I think I just got lucky. Like my draw lined up really, really well.
Sure.
Against Amanda's, and it worked out in my favor. And then at that point, if I win any of the next 3 rounds, I'm locked for top 8. Round 3, I need to read Boseiju, and there was a bunch of people watching my game, and nobody told me that like Boseiju is one of the cards that, like, it doesn't just kill your enchantment, it also gets you a land. And you're also supposed to you're also supposed to tell your opponent like, hey, you're allowed to get a land off this. And my opponent didn't, but they claimed they didn't know, and that was fine. They seemed fine enough. So if I'd have got a land, I would have been able to cast 2 spells because my opponent was looping me with the 8/8 creature that attacks and destroys stuff.
Cityscape Leveler.
Yeah, Cityscape Leveler, and untapping that. So I lost that match in game 3. I lost to Jacob in that was the Karuga Fires player in game 3. And then last round I played against Steve, and we had played to a draw. But before time was out, Steve was like 2-0-2, so it technically undefeated, but it picked up 2 draws.
Yeah,
and the game ended with me winning game 2, so I scooped him up, and then Steve went on to make the finals. So that was pretty much it for me. We needed to pick up some games. So my play was not perfect, but I really, really liked the Boros Pia deck. I think for my first time playing an event with Pia, I was pretty happy with my play. There's a lot of things that I caught. There's plenty of things that I missed, but there's most of the lines I think I took were good. And I also remembered always to chain the rocks on a mountain so that like you don't get your
Sacred Foundry
Boseiju destroyed by a land effect. You can still get Boseiju because your enchantment can get Boseiju.
Yeah, feel the
around that all day long. Never came up, but I thought about it the first time I played it. I was like, don't put this on a Shockland if you have the chance, because that can get destroyed by a ghost quarter type effect. So
Field
that
of
was
Rue.
it. How about you, Ruckman?
So I managed the top 8. We of course get the matchup against Monogram, playing Racksack. We brought back the classic, breaking out the making the modern players jealous. Break out the foil cats, the new foil ovens.
Right.
So we play Racksack. Unfortunately, lost the first round of top 8 to Mono Green, but the lead up there was some good magic. Lost in round 1 to Blue Eye Control off of just like I mulled a 5 game 1 and drew 10 lands. Game 2, we effectively mulled the 4 and just like did not find lands. So it's a real real match of Magic.
Real Magic the Gathering.
And then we played against Blue Eye Control in round 2, but we were able to kind of get them to the point of I ground out game 1. They got game 2, or they got game 1. I got the first post board game. Game 2, they mulled this 6 on a 2-lander, and I got to go like Thoughtseize into Duress into.
Yep.
They didn't draw lands, and then they were out of spells at that point. And they finally played a Lyra, and I got to go, cool. I'm going to sack this cat end of turn with my Mayhem Devil in play. You're going to take 1. Then we're going to go to my turn. I'm going to sack the food, get the cat back, deal 1 to Lyra, sack cat, deal 1 to Lyra, sack food, get cat back, deal 1 to Lyra, Deadly Dispute, sacking extra food token we had, deal 1 to Lyra, sack the treasure token, deal 1 to Lyra.
Finish off Lyra pretty much.
And that was the only spell they played that game.
Right. There you go.
Then in round 3, I played the Rakdos Sack Mirror match, where let me tell you what, the Raksack Mirror match is some fun, and never concede that matchup.
Mayhem Devil.
You just never know.
You never know. So that matchup was definitely just like I was on the back foot the entirety of our game 1. Like it was in the position where they were the beatdown, and we were just like trying to manage blockers, take as little damage as we could, make sure we answer their Mayhem Devils, until finally they're gassed out. We were able to start activating manlands and kind of getting in there and turning the game around. And a game that, again, you're looking at probably could concede, but we're just going to keep powering it out just because I have a lot of faith in the mirror match. I'm not going to say I'm like a perfect player, but I play the deck a lot that I feel like I can beat a lot of people in the mirror. And then game 2, we brought in the one of mirror breaker of the Meat Hook Massacre.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my opponent boarded out their hand disruption. And which, you know what, in the usual Rakdos matchup, sure, you don't want to keep and when you're playing Rack Mid against Rack Mid, you don't want to keep those in. But in this matchup, you do. And, we got to go turn 1, Thoughtseize them, into turn 2, the Meat Hook Massacre, X = 0, and that's enough.
If you play the deck the way it was designed, you're going to lose the game.
My opponent looks at it and goes, huh? And I'm like, yeah.
It's a cool card, huh?
And then round 4, I played against Michael on Mono White Humans, and that was probably the worst match I played all day, mostly because game 2, there was a solid amount of toast in game 2 where I missed the Crocs in my yard the whole game. And
like 3 straight turns, and you were dropping lands.
And then we also, like, both of us forgot there was a wedding announcement in play, and I'm like, oh, we're going to wipe the board. And then someone's like, actually, you both are dumb. Everything has 1 extra toughness. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I was supposed to sack that treasure token. But then, game 3, we just played the casual thing of we're going to take and kill all your things.
So I feel like, and I'm not trying to be, but the fact that opponent also put their cards in the yard, means that they were acknowledging their toughness wasn't pumped, right?
Sure.
It's not like they can do that, right?
Yeah.
But because both players misrepresented the board state, I really do think the world of Takesies Backsies would take pity on a Zachariah Ruckman at that point in time.
The world of Takesies Backsies does not exist for Zachariah Ruckman.
And I think you were literally supposed to go back to the point where you cast
Sure.
Nothing else had happened. So I think
Yeah.
you get to go back and recast your Meat Hook Massacre. You
Sacking the
just have to
treasure
say,
chest.
I was pretty sure my opponent was representing their creature at the wrong amount of toughness.
Yeah.
So I do think that's where the world of takes these back actually comes in there. But I think
Well, the judging staff on, I will say historically with the judging staff that was there, I will not get my takesies backsies.
right. But uh, the 3 turns of just not casting your Croxa,
That really did it.
that's what really did it. I'm just gonna tell you straight up. That was what happened there.
I will say, look, we got there in the end, but that was the biggest mess up of the day.
Right.
Because like even though there was the point of just like, oh man, I forgot to play my land so I could fatal push this Pelucranos. That didn't matter. We were losing that match anyway.
Yeah, when the mono green player flips their Paul Kronos, yeah, you need to be able to steal and sack it, and if you can't,
Yeah.
it's over.
Yeah, so oh well, you win some, you lose some. It was a good event though, nonetheless. Very, very good event. And very that's why I kind of just like, man, I don't want to play another one. We just kind of want to ride the high to the end of the season.
For real, man.
Play one
I'm
more.
a
Play one
believer now.
more.
I'm a
We'll see.
believer.
We'll see. We'll see. We'll see if it happens.
Supposedly the sealed Lord of the Rings one that's happening in San Antonio this weekend
Uh-huh.
currently has 1 signed up player.
Wow.
Well, look, anything the one here that was like the $100 buy-in, that capped. So
Interesting.
Right. And this was $50 to play Lord of the Rings sealed, which is a good.
We'll see how sick
Straight
I
up.
feel on Saturday morning.
Exactly.
Maybe we're driving to San Antonio.
I'm like telling my boss, I'm like, I know you don't want to sit through a long event, right?
yeah.
But I mean, if you just show up at like 9 and sort of slink around, and if you realize they've only got 10 players,
Yeah.
hop in there,
Hope to open good Rakdos cards.
Yeah, hope to open up Orcish Bowmasters, get your entire entry fee back off of a rare, right?
Yeah. All
So,
On a ring.
Well, yeah, that will do it for our RCQs. Let's talk about some of the other events that happened this weekend. Let's start off with I need to link you guys these events, don't I still?
I have 3 of them.
We have challenges in 5
Oh, I already
games.
said them. Haha, look at me. Look at me being prepared. All right. In 8th place, we have Poker Wizard on Mono Black mid-range. In 7th place, we have CMAC on Mono Green. In 6th place, we have Kazuga on Azorius Control. And this is not the Lotus Field version. In 5th place, we have Boy Triton on Rakdos Sacrifice. In 4th place, we have friend of the show, Carnage Carts ENT on Rogues. Boy, something had to go wrong this weekend, huh? In 3rd place, we have Cadepa 16 on Hidden Strings. In 2nd place, we have Falero on Rakdos Sack. And in 1st place, we have X-File on Rakdos Sack. All right, we'll throw Carnage a bone here and talk about the deck that is the worst Spirits deck I've ever seen because it's playing no Spirits. We got Rogues here. So we got 4 Thieves Guild Enforcer, 3 Fairy Mastermind, 4 Soaring Thought Thief, 2 Brazen Borrower. That's like a part-time Spirit. It gets invited to the parties every now and then. 2 Nighthawk Scavenger, 2 Shield of the Apocalypse. Oh, that's why this deck made it.
Shieldred's the best rogue.
It plays Shieldred, right? Yeah. 2 Kaito Shizuki, 2 Invasion of Amonkhet. That's a spicy one, though. 1 Cling to Dust, 3 Fatal Push, 1 Spell Pierce, 4 Thoughtseize, 4 John of the Lock, 2 Go for the Throat, 1 Shieldred's Edict, 23 lands. So, yeah, Rouges. What do you think about Rouges?
I think Roges is real close. I think obviously like Children's a heck of a card. Even Nighthawk Scavenger, I think is.
I think other
it's pretty
players
decent,
play this deck very well.
What did you say, Ricky?
I think other players can play this deck really well. I have never succeeded with this deck. I just feel like I'm always like I'm the bad beatdown deck, or I'm the bad mid-range deck, or I'm the bad control deck.
The only time we've done well with this deck was when we got to Zareth San
Saffron
Olive. Yeah.
Yeah, in standard, yeah.
Yeah.
The 1 Spell Pierce. Ugh.
Sometimes you just get them. I do like Cling to Dust.
That's a necessity. You have to play it, or else you just lose to milling your opponents good cards like Phoenix.
Cling to Dust might be relevant in a segment later on this evening.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I want to talk about this mono black mid range deck.
Yeah, let's talk about it. So, Poker Wizard, break it down for us, Ricky.
kind of sick. We're playing like one Tenacious Underdog, four Shieldred, and one Tegrid God of Fright, and no other creatures.
Okay.
Sick.
Then we're playing four Liliana of the Veil, Cling to Dust, Duress, Fatal Push, Thoughtseize, Heartless Act, Shieldred's Edict, two Go Blank main, one Languish main, one Bank Buster, one Meathook Massacre, and here we go, four Waste Not, one Phyrexian Arena, 25 lands that includes three, count them, three Gyre Reach Sanitarium.
Ooh, gotta power up those waste knots.
Yeah, let me tell you, this deck is kind of sick. Prohibitively expensive because Shieldred's, the playset runs you one box of Commander Masters. So, and then, a Meat Hook Massacre, and then four Waste Knots, and then four Thoughtseize.
Yeah. Thoughtseize, Lily, and Urborg.
Yeah.
Your monocolor deck here is
Thankfully, Kalidas is down to $8. Remember when that guy was like $30?
yeah, I do. I have
Leon is down to like 20 or less than 20 actually.
Remember when Kalidas was the Shieldred of the format?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
I
now
miss those
Shieldred's the
days.
Shieldred of the format.
I miss those days.
We're playing just Turgid's Lantern, right? Because I've lost to that card before. And
No, you cast the front side and then you steal your opponent's cards.
we're stealing opponents' cards.
I mean, you play the front side and then you Thoughtseize them, right? And then you get to free cast any card in their hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Permanent card.
Sure. I guess you could play Tegrid's Lantern if you want to. Why not, right?
Yeah.
Let them have
harder
it.
to answer.
But
I guess it gets Besaged, so all right.
After we've duressed their whole life away, right?
Yeah.
Then we Tegrid them.
Then we get them.
It's all ogre.
Then we get them. It's all ogre now. Oh, what else? Anything else kind of... Ooh, Boros Goblins in 20th place by Cute Chandra 19. 4 Cacophony Scamp, 4 Exuberant Fuseling, 4 Skirk Prospector, 4 Battlecry Goblin, 4 Conspicuous Snoop, 4 Goblin Instigator, 4 Runevald Horde Master, 3 Wily Goblin, 3 Goblin Ringleader, 3 Rally the Ancestors.
Gosh, my poor Sacred Foundries are they're in too many decks right now.
Yeah.
I can't keep doing this, right? Like I gotta move him to play Modern. I gotta move him to play Pia. I gotta move him to play Boros Convoke. I gotta move him to play this Goblins deck. Apparently,
if you get rid of the Sacred Foundry and the 4 Rending Volley, this deck is $100.
Yeah,
that's pretty awesome.
What is even writing like? Inspiring Vantage is like $35, $13 for 4 Rending Volleys, right?
Yeah.
Chain to the Rocks have finally gone up. This is a sick little challenge here,
Yeah.
There's even a Phoenix player.
Oh, what's this Jun deck at the bottom? Oh, Junsack.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Never mind. False alarm.
Never mind. Yeah, who cares? Not cool.
Next challenge.
Right, let's move on to Sunday's challenge. In 8th place, we have Bull Zero Eye on Boros Pia. In 7th place, we have Tzio on Boros Pia. Look, come on, Goldfish.
Look at those Bone Crusher Giants.
Look at him.
He's renamed. 6th place, Pepe Team with Abzin Greasefang. 5th place, End Magus on Team Air Creativity. 4th place, MJ_23 on Auras. Ooh, let's go back to this deck list.
The 4-color Greed build, too.
3rd place, Canopus16 on Lotus Field. 2nd place, Adam_T on Racksack. And 1st place, Kazuga on Azori's Control. And this is
Yorion.
Not the Lotus Field build. Yeah, it's Yorion. All right, let's talk about 4-color auras in 4th place. So we got 1 Gigantha the Wolfsburg as our companion, 4 Glade Cover Scout, 4 Light Paws, 4 Saiba Cryptomancer. That's the backup hexproof card for people who don't remember. 1 Aqueous Form, 4 Audacity of It All, 2 Carnation Solidarity, 4 Curious Possession, 4 Ethereal Armor, 2 Griff Spoon, 1 Kaya's Ghost Form. Is that fixed on Mitgo yet? I think it might be. 2 Sentinel's Eyes, 3 All That Glitters, 1 Alpha Authority, 4 Staggering Insight.
Staggering, the audacity of it all,
So we're bad, but we're playing Gigantha is what this is?
Yeah,
Yeah. But we're playing Gigantha and also playing Kaya's Ghost
Kai's
Form,
ghost form.
Playing guys ghost form.
which we never actually intend to cast, but we can because we're playing Mana Confluence.
Yeah, I assume we're
Yes.
searching for it, but
So some people just aren't ready.
Yeah.
To just be completely honest, right? Sometimes, you go Glade Cover Scout, and your opponent goes, "Can I read that card?" You go,
Yeah.
"Sure." And then you go Staggering Insight, and the game is just like over. Or
I mean,
even worse.
once you like Aqueous Form or Griff's Boon, your
Yeah.
guy like Racksack can't win.
Right. Or you just like, here's Audacity, here's Curious Obsession, and then turn 3 we're playing like an Ethereal Armor, and that's probably the game from there, right? Like
Yeah,
the Staggering Insight gives you lifelink too.
yeah,
This deck is hot. And then
yeah.
sometimes you just get paused out of the game,
hmm
Like I say a lot. I mean, you get another, sideboard Cryptomancer that has hexproof anyway, and I think that's kind of a big one of just like, all right, we can set up, we can flash it in, if you're afeared or something, and kind of
Slip
go from
and
there.
Stubborn in the sideboard is hot.
we are not losing anything. That's for sure. Anything interesting in these two builds of Boros you want to talk about? I mean, looks like we're finally settled on 4 Showdown because, like, gosh, that card is so impressive whenever I see it in play.
Yeah,
We have
it's a little to that slow side. The 8th place list is playing the Runaway Steamkin, which I've seen some people play along with Springleaf Drum.
Uh-huh.
And that's just to kind of help accelerate you to your other stuff. But the combination of Steamkin and Shutdown of the Skulls was pretty ridiculous. That was definitely something I saw on a stream today, and it was pretty huge. Some lists are cutting the kimono, but again, I think you have to realize at that point you're really slowing down your deck, which you can choose to do, but you still have some amount of speed, even if you don't, even if you don't hit your showdowns or whatever. Like you can just prowess up people off and get them pretty low, and then kind of mid range them the rest of the way down. And if you cut some 1-drops, you are looking to slow yourself down. Some people are cutting like the Soul Scar Mage because it doesn't have haste for that oil counters guy that you can sack them and redraw 4 cards.
Oh,
okay.
the Stoker of the Forge or whatever?
Yeah, and that card's cute in like the slower version of the deck. But I think you kind of got to pick a line. It's like, hey, if you're going slower, I think a card like that's fine because you're really counting on like a Steamkin and Shutdown of the Scalds, kind of comboing off, right? Type
Sure.
situation. And that
Now-
card's just a great way to be like, all right, well, I'm planning on getting to a bunch of mana anyway. I need to draw a critical mass of spells and functionally become a combo deck. And I think you could do something like that there. It could have just been a cute attempt, but I did like that cute attempt. But I think the other version, again, is all more of these 1-drops, and those have been treating me pretty well. So that's what I'm sticking on for now.
7th place, Tizio's list. This is the list. This is what you want to play. Look at that. Bone Crusher Giant. You're playing Play with Fire. Like nice, easy, all 4 ofs, right? Showdown of the Scalds, 20 lands. The only thing I disagree with is 3 Alpine Moon. I think Alpine Moon is pretty bad. It might be
I really like
necessary.
Destroy Evil. That's a card that I really like. And in fact, I would even take out the Justice Strike to like play 3 or more. There's the enchantment decks that play like really rely on them, and it's been really, really hard. And I think seeing 1 to 2 of those to kill temporary lockdowns, or even just to kill a well-timed incarnation, would flip the match.
Mhm.
And you do see a lot of your deck. So when you play multiples of a card, you see it pretty frequently. So I really like going up to like cutting an Alpine Moon, cutting a Justin Strike, play 3 Destroy Evils, because again, that toughness getter that also kills Shieldreds, right? It also kills Adelaines, as Ricky was pointing out. So
Mhm.
I really like that card in general in
Yeah.
Destroy Evil.
I agree.
This is the list where I would start. I would absolutely start with this kind of 4 of lower to the ground list and see how you like it and kind of adapt that to your metagame. Because again, Bone Crusher Giant, as Ricky pointed out, does go 2 to the face. It does give you another body, right? I
Mhm.
rarely got a counter off of it, or rarely got a Thopter off of it, but it is just a big beater. The only thing it really loses to, again, is like a Shieldred. It trades with most of the green creatures except for Cavaliers and your big boys. So did like that.
All right, let's move on to the 5K. Let me give me a second to see if I can figure out the actual top 8 order. I think we'll get who won, but we can figure out. That's Swiss. Hold on, let's go to the source real quick. Give me one second, everyone. We're going to the source.
Hold.
Huh?
Hold.
Fire shoes.
Ricky, why do you think Grease Fang is seeing more play? Because like a lot of these kind of greedy decks that I'm looking at just like die to 13 damage on turn 3.
Greasefang has been like on a downtick because people are playing removal spells that kill it.
Just the thing real well. Don't get me wrong, like Racksack, I'm sure is just like, hey, this has got a lot of fatal pushes that can be activated and things like that, right? You get access to Rending Volley to the board, but the rest of the decks in the field, you know, seem pretty good against it. But I suppose the Racksack has taken over a lot more of the metagame that used to be inhibited by Rakdos mid. So
I think just like in general, like a lot of graveyard hate has just sort of been added to a lot of sideboards also.
yeah,
Like you're seeing a lot more Rest in Peace, a lot of Tormod's Crypt, right?
sure.
Like Mono Green and Racksack are like probably two of the biggest decks right now, and they are both really bad for Greasefang.
Makes
Right?
sense. Makes sense.
And
A lot of
then
it's just random jank, just like dies to it, you know?
Pia is not very good against Greasefang game 1, right?
Right.
But like game 2, they normally play like 3 to 4 Rending Volley in their sideboard.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I can't figure out the top 8 order, but at least we know what the top 8 is. It looks pretty clean cut in the event. So, sorry I don't know the final standings of these, but we have at 5-1 and 1 at the end of Swiss. We have Tyler Nightingale on Azorius Lotus Field. In 7th place, you have Theodore Jung on Rakdos Sacrifice. 6th place, Jordan Small on Azorius Spirits. 5th place, Joseph Schuster on Atarka Red. Yes. 4th place, Michael Hadley on Azorius Control. 3rd place, Island Ghost Sammy on Mono Green Devotion. 2nd place, Jeffrey Silver at 502 with Rakdos Midrange. And then 1st place at the end of Swiss rounds, we have Deshaun Johnson on Mono Humans at 502 as well.
Oh my god.
What's up?
This Tarka Red list
Yeah?
plays 1 of Samet, Vizier of Nakaman.
Ooh.
We'll hear more about her later.
About hasting up goodness?
I love this card a lot. Yeah. And Hazret in the sideboard, I'm in love.
Yeah, this deck is sweet. It's 4 monsters, 4 Phoenix Chick, 3 Legionalas, 1 Zergo Bell Striker, 4 Burning Emissary, 2 Kari Zev, 4 Douglas Bushwhacker, 1 Miglaws, 4 Kimono Faces Kakazan. Play with Fire, Lightning Strike, a Targus Command. Targus Command, a card that didn't make my top 5 list, but almost did. This list is sick. This list is definitely dope, and I have most of it. The cards get here in 2 weeks.
I still need to get that Legion Loyalist off of you.
You do, actually.
Yeah, actually, you should have done that when I was in town, but oh well.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda. All right. Well, that is it for events from this last week. Now let's talk about, these are cards that people are playing. Let's talk about some cards that you probably aren't playing, or at least be playing more of, because, you know, at least a couple of my cards, they show up here and there, but I feel like people just in general should be playing more of them. So we each have our top 5 cards. Before we go over our top 5, are there cards that you're just kind of thinking about that just didn't quite make the list? I mean, I think there are a lot of cards that I was thinking of that, again, maybe in like a post-ban world are more than likely, but I'm talking like, I was thinking cards like Anathens of the Foremost. There are plenty of cards I think that are just like formerly powerhouse cards from Standards Past that are just like on the cusp of being playable.
I'm going to tell you, I did not include any like obvious ones. So like I could like say like my honorable mention would be like Voice Resurgence, right?
Yeah.
Brimaz, right?
Sure.
I feel like those are like the obvious ones.
Yeah, I would think of like Nightpack Ambusher.
See, that's more obscure, right? I was thinking about like the cards. Essentially, mostly the cards that I think of were like obvious are like the cards that got left behind when Winota got banned, right?
Sure.
Like those cards I kind of didn't include.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to post my list. Y'all can start looking.
I've got an honorable mention.
Yeah.
What you got?
My honorable mention was Silver Gill Adept.
We got to wait till Caverns of Ixalan.
We got to wait. I think it's coming up, but a lot of the folks out there don't remember how powerful it is to just replace your on curve beater with another card. That kind of effect is very, very strong. It's still played in to my knowledge, I am not up to date on Legacy Merfolk or anything like that, but up until a couple of years ago, it was played in Modern Merfolk, Legacy Merfolk, all that, just for its ability to redraw you as an incredibly powerful effect. So a card like that is very, very, very strong. And that was my honorable mention, especially because, again, there's not currently a Merfolk deck out there, but there could be. There could be soon, and there could be now. I mean, that's just a card that I think is incredibly strong, generically strong, and deserves the spot on the list.
All right, well, let's start with the actual list. Who wants to go first?
I guess I'll start at poster mine first.
Sure.
I'll start at my number 5.
Yep.
Invasion of Tarkir.
Ooh.
Invasion of Tarkir is a 2-mana red battle mythic rare from Martian Machine.
Okay.
We'll pull it up real quick. I don't remember the exact wording, right?
It's battle. We haven't read too many of them.
When it comes into play, it deals damage. I think it deals 2 plus X damage to any target, where X is the number of dragons you reveal when you cast it.
Okay.
The backside, after dealing 5 damage to it, the backside is a 4/4 flying trample dragon that says whenever a dragon you control attacks, it deals 2 damage to any target. And I think mid-range red has been gone for a while.
Yeah.
And I think if a certain story about certain goblins who may or may not have smashed various decorative furniture, right? If those get banned, I think this card is very good.
Sure.
I think like Oath of Chandra has seen play for being a 2-mana burn spell that deals 3 damage with like medium upside, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of in the same vein. It only deals 2 damage, but it can deal more if you have dragons in your hand. And I think the Dragon Tribal deck is always very fun.
Yeah.
This card flips.
What are gold spans going for right now? They're like dirt cheap, right?
Right, and Thundermaw unfortunately is in M13.
Yeah.
It's one of those cards I'd really like to pull over, right?
We still got Glorybringer and what's the 4-mana one that like... We
still got the Thunderbreak Regent.
Yeah, and Storm Breath.
Yep. So, and we've got Shivan Devastator, which is a dragon.
Oh, yeah.
So, there's lots of cool dragons we could be playing, and there's a cool dragon Planeswalker and a cool dragon Battle. But this is what I start with.
I like it.
All right. My number 5, again, we already talked about one copy of it. Cling to Dust. I feel like more people should be playing Cling to Dust. I think what are you shaking your head at?
No, don't play more graveyard removal. Leave my graveyard alone.
I just think
your hands out my graveyard.
Is one of those cards that's just like, it's also just generically good when it's not just sideboard hate. So like it's one of those good cards that just kind of have like in a sideboard where you're up against a control matchup and you just like need to trim cards, right? Like you don't want all these removal spells and things like that in your deck. Like it's one of those cards that just, I think it's just, there's nothing wrong with having just generically good cards that are also upside to other matchups where, again, I want to board out like 10 cards. Oops, I only have like 4 or 5 to really bring in. But now, Cling to Dust might not be the best in the control matchup, but like, hey, if we get to hit like a Memory Deluge or even just like end step, we get to hit like a card of their yard and just keep filling our hand, keep escaping it and things like that. I think it's a very relevant and very powerful effect.
I want to stop everything, right?
Okay.
I'm not going to reveal anything, right? But I'm looking at Ruckman's list.
Okay.
You just hate fun.
What are you talking about?
An absolute hate.
I don't know.
Hate. All right, we're moving on.
We'll get to Johnson.
Chris, what's your number 5?
All right, my number 5 is Shrapnel Blast, a card that we got in a recent anthology, but a 2-mana 5 damage card is pretty loco, and I think if Karn gets banned, I think you want to have this card in spades. I think there's this card also kills Shieldred. I think in before it was like, all right, well, I can kill these creatures with a lot of other red spells anyway, and I've got to sack something. Do I really want to like play that much synergy to get the 5 damage? Yeah, I mean you can copy this spell. There's a lot of ways with the Oni Cult Anvil, right? It's like
if if card gets banned, I've got my Oni cult ready to go, and 4 of
Yeah.
these are going right in it.
Yeah, I mean, this again, the 5 damage is so huge. Like again, you'd be surprised when like your opponent draws 2 of these. That's half your life, and that's a pretty killer one as far as like, hey, just get into play. Whether or not you want to play synergies with prowess creatures because you're playing a lot of like token makers or whatever you want to do, or just you're just grinding people out, stealing their cards, sacking them, catting people. Right, you can be
Yeah.
catting people just fine and getting life that way. But it all of a sudden speeds that clock up a lot. But again, I do think that a lot of your artifact token makers are held back by Karn. I still think you could play them, especially at like a local event. I think this card is deserving of play. I used to see a lot of play in the red blue scissors deck, so
Yeah.
it has seen play in the format before. It's not never seen play,
It's no
but it
white
has kind of
goose.
gone away. And I think that 5 damage is quite a bit. So
I like Shrapnel Blast.
Ricky, what you got?
Number 4, I have Salmut, Vizier of Tutankhamun, or whatever she's the Vizier of.
Of Nakamut.
Nakamut, sure.
haste, the Vizier of Haste.
Yeah, she is a red-green 1 for a 2/3 haste, first strike, vigilance, maybe?
Something.
a lot of
A lot of
keywords.
Uh-huh. First strike, vigilance, haste, yeah. Why not? Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, if that creature enters the battlefield this turn, you draw a card. This just sort of like really lets you go all in like all in strategies and refill from your like hasted like man. It's kind of like tough that the red white convoke deck is kind of tight on its mana because of how few lands it plays. You can't play somewhat, but like being able to like make the 3 tokens off of the make the 3 tokens into the route like the bushwhacker, and then swing with 4 hasted bodies with Samut in play. Maybe draw 2 to 3 cards, right? Refill your hand for after the board wipe. She also has a lot of relevant abilities. First strike means that she can face up against a Shieldred and win with a burn spell. Vigilance means that she's going to still threaten that against the Shieldred if they just decide not to block, right?
Mhm.
I like this card a lot in burn strategies, aggressive strategies like a Tarka Red. And I love the art of this card. I love the flavor text of this card. This is the all haste, all red Hazaret world that I want to live in.
Sure. Well, thank you for including a Bard class card in your list.
You're right. Sure.
I'm with you. I think Atarka Red should be playing this card. I think there's definitely a deck like there that that matches with what P is doing, where it's like, hey, I don't need to make hasty tokens because I'm drawing more burn spells, right? Swift Spear has haste. There's a lot of cheap cards that have haste. Even your flipped Kakazan has haste, right? If you want to go that way. So there's a lot of cards that have haste that this pairs really, really well with that are just good on their own, where it's like, hey, you draw your Samut, great. If you don't, you're still an aggressive deck.
Randomly, the goblin that gets made off of either Squee or the goblin made off of Den of the Bugbear, both will trigger Samut.
Yep.
As well as the
Leech
human
Loyalist
token.
Leech
Made
Loyalist,
from
Goblin Rabblemaster tokens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The yeah.
So my number 4, I hear about all this hastiness running around.
See,
Also, if you're worried about people putting cats in ovens, this is another good card for that matchup, and that is going to be Authority of the Consuls for a single white mana. We're going to make sure every creature comes to play tapped, and you're also going to gain life.
you're a hater. This was like when Boros was the Hogak, right? People were like, I'll just play this and win. And it's like, yeah, you will. You will beat the one Boros Convoke player you run into.
Sure.
And lose to every other deck you bring this in against.
But again, I think like as Boros Pia still kicks around, like shutting down the Thought for like a turn can be pretty big. And then like even if you're a creature-based deck, like this card is so funny against Racksack because number 1, it's an enchantment, so they're not going to get off the board. Number 2, it shuts down the cat side of the combo, and in 2 ways. One, it makes so cat can't block unless they bring it back. Unless they get a turn cycle with it. So it's really hard for them to kind of like sack, bring it back in the same cycle, and try to block with it. Right. And then again, like the life gain is really relevant. So you get your Redain shield out, you get an Authority of the Consuls out, and Rakdos Sack can't win.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, you ready for my number 4?
Yeah.
Yes.
This is a quick one, and this is something that I think, a card from Ricky's list later, I think makes a lot of sense to me because this card
There
came up
were
where I was thinking of,
several cards I was thinking of. I also thought of this card too, Chris.
yeah, there's
Go
like
along
there's
with
like
Ricky's next pick as well.
some archetypes that don't get enough love, and so this card is Casualties of War. For 6 mana as a sorcery, we choose one or more, so we can do all these. We destroy an artifact, creature, enchantment, land, and planeswalker. Planeswalkers aren't the most popular card in this format, but if you play this against mono green, you might get every single one of those modes. You know, like Wolfalo Haven, Karn, creature, artifact in whatever they got with Karn, right,
Mhm.
and a land. That's probably the dream, but in most cases for our 6 mana, if like we're farewelling, this is a card that I do feel like kind of competes nicely with farewell in that slot. But we also can take out a land, so we can take out a key Nykthos, we can take out a key. If your opponent had 2 Chain of the Rocks, I mean, I don't know if they put them on different lands because they're smart. You can get the land, you can get the enchantment. So there's a lot of things you can do with this, and whether or not it's mostly a sideboard card, which I have seen it in some sideboards. I was thinking it more for like a main deck in like some kind of Golgari deck. There's a lot of Golgari cards that I wanted to put on this list. I could probably fill this list with Golgari cards that just don't see play, to be honest with you, right? Like, I
Man,
see the list now, so like I'll put, I can talk about an Assassin's Trophy. I can talk about an Abrupt Decay. Abrupt Decay was better when Spirits was more around, but there's a lot of Golgari cards that just aren't getting enough love, and I think this is definitely one of the ones that came to my mind as far as like, man, this most decks are playing multiple card types right now, right?
Mhm.
Rakdos has artifacts in Oven, certainly creatures and lands, but you're usually hitting creatures and lands. You could be hitting multiple other types. So just a card that came to my mind where I was like, man, 6 mana, not as hard as it used to be to get to, whether or not you're rampant or whatever else. So that was my number 4.
my number 3 kind of tags onto that.
Yep.
Man, Sacred Foundries, they be getting around right now, you
Yep.
know?
Yeah.
They do. Stock is hot.
Blood Crypts, lots of decks love Blood Crypt, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
People love their blue-white lands off the Copium, right?
Yep.
We got Lotus Field playing the Breeding Pool, But, Dasher and Dancer and Prancer and Vixen, right?
Right.
But do you recall Overgrown Tomb
Mm-hmm.
and
I
Golgari
I, I
as
remember.
the
I
entire
remember
concept?
staring
Uh,
forlornly into the distance.
it's like a 2 of in Greasefang list right now, and maybe 3 of, and that's it. And there need to be more Overgrown Tomb decks, and I think that just like it's part of the Fable problem is that like you're always better off playing a mid-range graveyardy deck in Rakdos than you are trying to play any sort of green-black deck.
Play a mid-range graveyard deck in Golgari.
Yeah, like I mean, the Sultai decks are kind of all combo fests. Really, they're
Yeah.
not really grindy decks. So like, there's no Cheville, there's no Vraska, there's no Winding Constrictor energy deck. Like, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
We need
No,
more Overgrown Tomb decks.
I'm with you. Like I said, I was just thinking about like, can I just say Golgari decks? And Ricky did it for me.
I did.
Chris,
I was like,
Chris mentioned
Overgrown Tomb.
Chris mentioned Calories of War. I also thought about Abrupt Decay. There are a lot of cards that I just like. That's why I was like, maybe we'll kind of revisit this if there's a big band shakeup, because like there are a lot of cards I wanted to mention. But I was just like, man, but you just with the Fable X around, it's so hard.
If Glissa Sunslayer was a 2/4, I think we'd be playing that deck. I think unfortunately it dies to the 3 damage rule spells in Abrade and Fiery Impulse. And that ends up being like too big of a downside because that is like one of my top 5 strongest creatures in Pioneer, right? You got your Shieldreds, I think, that are up there. But as far as like impact on the board, Hullbreaker Horse still up there for me. And Glissa just does so much, right? If there's nothing for you to kill of theirs, then you get to draw a card, which is, again, talk about it with Silvergill Adept. Cards that replace themselves are huge, but if they're playing any other permanents, I think it doesn't kill artifacts, and it gets enchantments, but a lot of enchantments running around right now, and Gliss is a key card, I think, for that. So I like the call, just put Overgrown Tomb on there, because why are we not playing Golgari?
All right, my number 3. Again, look, Rakdos players,
Hands
you,
off my
you're
brain.
you Rakdos players, you struggle in some of these matchups that like you should like look. Actually, don't tech out for the cat matchup any harder, please. But if you are having problems with this and you want to help shore up some other matchups, like I don't know, maybe Boros Pia and their Chain of the Rocks you can't answer, also wipe all their thoughts at the same time. Play more Hidetsugu consumes all.
Are you saying that if you're having cat problems, you feel bad for me, son? You've got 99 problems, but Hitgitsu is not one?
Round of applause. Round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll be here all week.
I mean, this card like is always one of those cards that just I think always deserves, especially if you're playing Raptors mid range, to be a 1 or 2 of slot in your sideboard. Like it just wipes up so many incidental things. And then, hey, exiling graveyards, not bad. And then the third one is just a big beater. Like
Yep.
the card is always impressive to me whenever I play it.
Yep.
The card was
Fair
like
enough.
$25 when it came out.
Yeah.
Is it really?
Now it's
It
like
was.
nothing. Now
Yeah.
it's like nothing.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness. My number 3 is Emrakul, the Promised End.
See Overgrown Tomb.
Yeah, yeah. This card wins games. It is pretty rare that you get to resolve this card and not totally destroy your opponent's game plan. There's a lot of interaction running around right now, contrary to popular belief. There's a lot of interactive cards. There's a lot of sacking things going on. There's a lot of ways that you can hurt yourself if you play bad. So I think this card is way less often to just be like, oh look, I get to run your creature into my creature and kill it. At a minimum, you get to make a really good block and remove whatever your opponent's best creature is. But hopefully, it's not a Shieldred you're attacking in to kill your own Emrakul. But usually speaking, this card can do a lot of damage, and I think you can cast it pretty early in today's format with how many different card types are around. I still think that the Colossal Sky Turtle is a card that I guess speaking of cards that didn't see any play, that probably could see play to help your Delirium. It's a creature enchantment, and the channel effects on those are insane. But we just got a bunch of channel cards that I think are pretty decent, and they pair really, really well with this card. But this is the card that I was thinking of as far as like kind of like the game ender in just grindy decks. It's like, no, I mean, I've got 8 mana and a few card types in the board or in the yard. Boom, here we go. And this card's got protection from instants. So, it gets chained to rocks, but that's about what kills it right now. I guess, you get your board sweeps and whatnot, but
Sure.
it doesn't get got by most of the removal in the format, right? It's a pretty chonky boy. So that was my number 3, just for like a big game ender that can really ruin people's plans.
You can insert the non-flashbacks behind me right now, right?
Right,
I'm going
right.
to tell you, Chris, I hate this card to no end. I respect this decision. But I played Standard with this card when
Sure.
it was ubiquitous, right?
Yeah.
And everybody played 4 copies or 3 copies, and like Emrakul of the Promise, this game is never going to end. It just like
sure.
I'll play Emrakul, and then I'll look at your hand and I see that you have an Emrakul, so I'll like play all the bad cards I can play, and then pass to you, and then you play your Emrakul, and then you take my turn, and then I get a turn, and then I crash our Emrakuls, and it doesn't end. It never ends. I'm glad this card is not seeing a lot of play. I can let it see some play.
Right.
But I never, ever want to run Emrakuls into each other ever again in my life. And I do
right
think
now you wouldn't be. Right now you wouldn't be, but I do hear you. The card
really
can cause some
hurts
problems,
this card.
Yeah.
Because like if your opponent has Shieldred in play and you play Emrakul, you can't not gain them the life for drawing the extra card. You can't really run it into the Emrakul because of Death Touch.
Right.
And so it's like maybe you can find a Go for the Throat in their hand and kill their own Shieldred. You also, because of sagas right now, you can't like have them not saga.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
They have to saga. It's like giving them an extra turn, even if you control it. There's some pieces to that aren't very good. I mean, granted, you can discard their best cards, but they still have to draw 2 more, right?
No, it's fair. I mean, also, like you're giving an extra turn to swap the third thing of Fables. Like if it did transform on that turn, on their bonus turn, it gets to do its thing.
Right.
But I assume in this thing, again, the game's gone pretty late, right? And we're kind of hammering it out. So this is just a big creature that whether or not you cheat it out or whether or not you whatever,
Right. I like this pick, though.
All right, Ruckman, what's your number 2?
Ricky gets his number 2.
My number 2 is Thought-Knot Seer.
Ooh, that's a good one.
AKA Reality Smasher. aka maybe Matter Reshaper, maybe. But
Maybe.
like, we got all the pain lands, right?
Mhm.
So we can cast these guys pretty easy now in any
Sure.
color combination we want to play them in, right? We've got like cards like Wasteland Strangler and stuff like that, and we've got every way to exile things ever. I think this deck is really close. I think like a black-white Eldrazi deck is pretty close. It does not have Eldrazi Temple or
You don't
Eye
want
of
to play
Ugin.
green for like the ramp though?
Why do we need to ramp? I don't know. Like, I think just playing Thought-Knot Seer on turn 4 is like fine, right?
Sure.
Wasteland Strangler is also like a pretty insane card.
Mhm.
Wasteland Strangler also interacts really, really fun with the Pia decks running around. In case you
Oh
didn't
yeah.
know, Wasteland Strangler is a 3-drop that when it comes into play, you may choose a card an opponent owns in exile and put it in their graveyard. And if you do, you give a creature -3/-3 until end of turn. So you can put one of their cards that's been exiled with Showdown or with Ren's Resolve that they're planning on playing next turn, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just put that baby right in their graveyard and kill their Pia,
What if we
right?
combo Wasteland Strangler with Invasion of Gobakon?
You can. We can do that. Or with Paulo,
Yeah.
which is really fun also, right?
To be
Hey,
fair though,
if we got
if we're
colorless, we
calling
can just
out
play Eldrazi Displacer.
if we're
I mean,
calling out Shieldreds, right, and how they interact with our cards, our Thought-Knot Seer does not stack up well to a Shieldred. That's all.
this is
That's
truth. This is truth.
But
I
I
hear
do
you.
like Thought-Knot Seer.
Unless we're on the play, which is what
Yeah, then what do
Pioneer's
you
all
think
about.
we're going to
That's the
Thought
truth.
Knots here?
Right. Then we're exiling Shieldred with Thought-Knot Seer, right?
Yep.
I just think that the black-white Eldrazi deck is really close, and I don't know if that close needs like a random land that accelerates us, or if it needs just like some cards to get banned. But this is a card that I think about a lot. I think if they ever do lose their minds and print the Tron lands into Pioneer, that the Eldrazi deck will see play for sure.
We could play like Vanishing Verse and stuff like that. Like, oh,
Yeah.
play
You're
deep,
into this deck already.
play deep. I'm actually so into this deck.
Are you ordering your Wasteland Stranglers as we speak?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
Keep talking.
That's-
Keep this deck list going.
yeah. I'm just saying that you got Blight Herder, right? The
Yeah.
card that lets you process to get a bunch of tokens, right? Yeah, I think this deck is sick and it's really close. So it's a card I say people need to play more of.
All right, number 2, Archon of Emeria.
Stop hating.
Nobody plays basic lands in this format, so punish them even harder for it.
God.
Also, those Pia decks, they want to cast a lot of spells. Don't let them.
Ruckman, who hurt you?
Everyone.
Yeah,
And they must feel the pain.
clearly. Every aggro deck ever. Ruckman is against.
That I also play.
Right, yeah.
Ruckman saw my deck from that RCQ and was like, I want to hate on exactly that. I would like to destroy
This is for Chris making me buy Okos and them getting banned.
Right.
Exactly right.
Are you ready for the big hero moment where they unban Oko in Modern to stop the One Ring?
I'm so ready to elk my own ring so it stops killing me.
Yep.
Like, it's so stupid. This is exactly how we don't do this.
Yep. All right, you ready for my number 2?
Yeah.
I'm ready for your number 2.
All right. Ricky's loading up the thoughts right now. Ricky's loading them up. He's putting them in. My number 2 is Weir of Invention.
We
We are of invention. Now we were of invention.
exactly past tense.
Past tense. We were of invention.
It's okay.
For triple blue and X with improvise, we search our library for an artifact that costs X or less and put it into play. There's a couple, other formats. This card is like
There's a card in the room though.
There's a Karn in the room. That's for sure. But I don't let Karn stop all my dreams. And sometimes our artifact is good enough. Sometimes our artifact is a permanent that destroys Karn. Sometimes it's whatever else. Sometimes it's a Aetherworks Marvel, right? Which is where I think this could probably slide in the best as far as like finding our combo pieces that are artifacts and going from there. You could theoretically also find an Ozolith if you wanted to. Whatever you're trying to get up to, this card, tutoring for artifacts in every other format is pretty strong. And usually there's a lot of restrictions to it, or they're banned, or they're whatever. Not on our format. And there's a lot of like the format's a little bit slower. but like Woodworker's Puzzle Knot works really well with this card, right? As cards we want to tap. Portable Hole. Portable Hole is an artifact that comes into play, gets something, and then conveniently gets to improvise for a weird invention. Glass Casket. There's another portable hole, I think that costs 2, that's an artifact that also can tap for improvise on this. So there's a lot of really, really cute cards that come into play and remove stuff or do stuff just as being an artifact that can then you'll get our Weird Invention to go, tutor. We can tutor up Portable Hole. We can tutor up Glass Caskets. There's a lot of things we can do with this card that make it really, really flexible and really, really powerful with the additional ability to reduce costs that I think makes this card like, at least it makes it number 2 for me if it tells you how powerful I think this card is versus how much play it's seeing. Weird Invention's a card that I really, really, really like.
I love this card. To me, the one thing that's always brought it down a little bit, right, is that your blue artifacts can't reduce the blue cost like Court of Calling can.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
But I still think this card's really good, and it's just like waiting for some weird deck that it needs, right?
Yep.
Or a non-Karn, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I used to play this in like the mono blue Storm deck, like the Paradox deck, right? It was like you found your Aetherworks Marvel, you found your Paradox Engine, or you found your Statuary with this card, right?
Sure.
But nowadays in a Karn world, Karn does all that for you while also turning off your opponent's artifacts. You know? So we might as well play Karn if we're playing an artifact combo deck.
True.
Which is also the best card against you. Which is terrible.
If we're playing Karn, we might as well play the One Ring.
Exactly. I hate Karn so much. It's the worst designed card I've ever seen in my life that might not.
Yeah. Artifact cards are rough. All right.
Number ones.
All right, I got one for you.
This is good. I like this one. Ricky. I like this one a lot.
Sphinx's Tutelage.
This is a good one.
This card, people don't respect it. I used to play this in my old Phoenix builds way back when. It was like, how do you beat Rakdos? It's easy. You just become a control deck, and you play Sphinx's Tutelage.
Yeah.
Sphinx's Tutelage is a 3-mana blue enchantment that says whenever you draw a card, target opponent mills 2 cards. If those 2 cards share a color, repeat the process, right? It also says 6 mana, draw a card, discard a card. Hopefully we don't get desperate enough for that. But with Treasure Cruise being able to draw us 3 cards and then also mill our opponent like at least 6, but probably 8 to 10 cards, right? This card is like a great secondary answer, and Rakdos really just can't answer it. They have to Thoughtseize it out of your hand. The trick is keeping yourself alive. I stopped playing this card ever since Graveyard Trespasser became really tough to get off the board. And then when Shieldred came around, it was long gone. But maybe it's time to bring it back. A lot of decks are drawing a lot of cards right now.
Yeah.
They don't think about their deck emptying out. Maybe it's time we put the Fear of God back in them, right?
Also, was just a fun standard deck back in the day.
Oh, it was the most fun standard deck back in the day.
Like Alhamrit's Archive and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. That was fun.
Oh, this is great. Jace Vryn's Prodigy.
We played there's like a random 2-mana Spell Mastery, tap 2 creatures. If you had Spell Mastery, they stay tapped. And like we just played Whelming Wave as our
Whelming Wave.
And then when Innistrad came out, you had the Fevered Visions or whatever.
Yeah, Fevered Visions. Yep. Yeah. But it's such a fun card. People know what it does, and it can legitimately win you games if you're playing a control deck or a blue-red draw a bunch of cards deck. I think honestly, Creativity, this could be a good card to end games for you.
Sure.
Because it doesn't get hit. I don't think Creativity hits enchantments, right?
It's artifacts
and creatures.
Creatures, yeah.
So you can play this safely as like an alt win con. And it's really good against control decks if you can resolve it. They have to answer it quickly, right? I just like this card. Doesn't do well with pieces of the puzzle. Does not synergize there. But what can you do?
Still.
It's a card I think needs to see more play.
All right. My number one recently got reprinted in an anthology, Voice of Resurgence. Again, Ricky kind of talked about it. Kind of got abandoned post Winota ban, but I mean,
card's good.
Card is so good, right? This is another card that just like it wants a shell. this is like either we just define like a show season built around this card because just like playing just like so gets as good right now just because of again how good all of the like Fable mid range decks are. But this card is so close, and I think the times we have seen it, it looks very impressive.
Yep.
Just play Naya Fable.
Yeah.
You know, Naya
Might as
Fable,
well.
Voice Resurgence. Why not copy
Rest
your
of
Voice
them.
Resurgence? You know,
Yeah.
and then sack it before it goes away, so you get the cool token.
Yeah.
I don't know. This card's really sick. Punishes people who want to play reactively on your turn. Punishes people who want to like just kill your guy with spot removal.
Mhm.
Really just a punishing card. Like every card on Ruckman's list, Ruckman wants you to hate on your opponent more. He wants us to live in a saltier universe, and that's fine. I do think this card's very good.
Pioneer events are too fun. We enjoy ourselves too much.
Right. It's my life has been too good recently, you know?
All right, Chris, your last card.
My number one card is Collected Company.
Oh.
Yeah, a little bit of a cheat because it's definitely seen play in Pioneer before. But Ricky kind of pointed out a couple episodes ago where he was talking about like, well, Collected Company is so good in other formats because it can win you the game, and in this format it can't. Which I think is kind of the key to the card. And technically, Angels still plays it, but I haven't seen Angels around in a while, right?
You played
You sat next to it twice.
What's that?
You sat next to it twice.
I think it was the same. Or it was the same guy.
Right, but
yeah,
twice.
There weren't two Angel players. They're still.
Yeah, there were. I don't know the other one, but if you're playing it out there, then again, you still play this card. But it's the only deck that even kind of plays it, and it's not around as much anymore. So weirdly enough, that top 32 that we saw, the 32nd place, where we're like, oh, it's Jun Sack played it because this obviously gets you Mayhem Devil and things like that, and that's kind of where I was really looking for this card. Is like, this card gets there, it also gets Reflector Mage. There's a lot of really cute cards that we used to see it. You used to see it in Spirits and things like that. But this card has just kind of gone away. And again, the card is just insanely powerful. Getting 6 mana worth of creatures at instant speed is obviously the dream, and you can't always do it. But I think it's fine. I think they've gone down a decent little chunk, right? Anybody know the price on that off the top of their head?
But don't you want to get 10 mana worth of permanents for 5 mana on your turn?
Right. I hear you. You can do something like that. But if we're in a creature deck, this is obviously one that we're trying to curve out earlier, and this kind of fits that bill. So this is a card that I think has a lot of potential for how powerful it can be. I think it'll depend on obviously what kind of creatures we can get. If we get really powerful 2 mana cards that we really want to hit off this, but you're really looking for 3s, and I think that's kind of what holds back in addition to just how much card advantage we see in the format right now. But again, you get a chance to load up the board, attack with it, and if your opponent wipes or has answers, instant speed, you can replenish if they start doing things like Chain of the Roxing, Wrathing, things like that. And that's where I see this card being really good, right? Playing it as an instep as a combo kill, where it's like, hey, most of the steal effects are sorcery speed, so boom, I'll haste in some guys and get busy and hopefully put you under enough pressure that you don't have enough steal my creature effects to win. So a lot of cards that I think could pair really well with this. That it's probably not its time to shine yet, but just a really really powerful card that's kind of gone by the wayside. So
just like real life, Angels might have all the star players, but it can't catch a dub.
That's it.
Ooh.
That's it.
Ooh, good one.
Played best on your upkeep. Obviously, we haven't made that joke this episode yet. So
you can cast it and you can find Shohei and Mike Trout. Doesn't mean you're going to win the game.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
All right, well, that will do it for this week's episode. Before, of course, we end things, we're going to go thank our supporters on Patreon, patreon.com/Crew3MTG. We've got several great tiers available. We've got lots of fun stuff coming out there. And if you're looking for some actually just generally accessible to everyone content on the Patreon, later this week and early next week, we'll be dropping the Speed Racer audio commentary, and the video will go up on YouTube. Want to buckle up for a great time.
God, I almost forgot about that.
Ricky just complain about visual transitions.
Man, yeah, that's what I did.
Yeah. But of course, this is all part of our really cashing in the stuff from Extra Life last year in the lead up to Ruckman has to play 3 games a week before he can rage quit.
Yep.
Ooh, I'm looking forward to that.
Don't know when that's going to be. But it'll definitely be before November, the first week of November. So be on the lookout for when we start talking about Extra Life plans for this year, rather. We're going to do things a little differently this year with the giveaways and stuff like that, but that's going to give more people chances to be involved and things like that. So should be a lot of fun. We'll still have the giveaways. We'll still have all the fun goals on things like that. I love doing the movie commentary and stuff like that with the guys. But of course, that's not Patreon. Of course, patreon.com/crew3mtg. Several great ways to support us. And no matter what tier you join, you get access to the Patreon channel where we can ask for episodes, for ideas for episodes and things like that. And you also get access to the Patreon mailbag. You ask questions sound something like this. This comes from Minjisku podcast shoutouts. What are some of your favorite podcasts, Magic or otherwise? Spread the love and shout them out.
Other podcasts that I would listen to?
Other podcasts you listen to. I've got several. If you guys want to take a second to think. So podcast wise, of course, the only real other Magic podcast I listen to right now. So I tend to stick away from Magic content just to keep my thoughts kind of my own. And that is, of course, Bridges Shoxies. Listen to him interview all those wonderful people. Look for non-Magic content. I can't recommend the Weekly Planet enough. It's kind of movies and TV shows, all that kind of nerd culture stuff. I also listen to Kind of Funny's In Review podcast. And then I've got off a lot of podcasts. I'm kind of going to more long-form YouTube channels. So if you want some good long-form YouTube channels, I'd recommend if you're looking for like 40K stuff, Luton09, Oculus Imperia are very good, like 40K. Also kind of, those are lore podcasts, fun podcasts for 40K. Is the Poor Hammer podcast. They kind of do like some budget stuff. And then I also want to talk about great like long form YouTubers like Defunct Land, H Bomber Guy, and just stuff like that. And really just kind of deep diving into topics. What about you guys?
The only podcast I kind of still listen to pretty consistently is like the Dead Meat podcast.
Mm.
I used to listen kind of religiously to the Next Level podcast, but I don't even think it exists anymore.
I don't think so either. No.
And The Game, which also I don't think exists anymore. Those were my two big Magic podcasts, and when they went away, I kind of stopped. But like, listen to Dead Meat podcast quite a bit, and honestly, I was spending so much time making dumb podcasts.
Sure.
Not this one, other stupider podcasts that I was doing that I kind of like got turned off podcasts for quite a while.
Yeah.
But I will still listen to Dead Meat. They're a horror podcast that they go over different horror movies and stuff like that. They're really fun. They go to all the Fright Nights at like all the different places that do like Fright Night and stuff. It's a lot of fun.
As far as I go, again, same thing. Like I like to keep our thoughts our own. So I mostly play Magic and then come on here and look at stuff. But a lot of people have recommended the Faithless Brewing podcast is one that's pretty fun, and the guys on there seem pretty nice. Outside of Magic, I listen to My Brother and Me.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Man,
which is kind of a fun one. Mostly I like to laugh outside of my Magic stuff. So My Brother is a good one.
Who's your favorite brother? Mine's Griffin.
Sure. I don't know. They've all got their own thing, and I like that they're brothers, and so
I feel like Chris would be the fan of the Juice.
Okay, fair enough. I don't know what that means,
like,
but
Justin.
Okay, sounds good. I like the guy that goes big dog ruff when he introduces himself. That's like my kind of dumb humor, you know.
The Mills brother Travis McElroy.
Yeah, Travis is right. It's right. Yeah. So I listen to that a lot, which I really like. And then another one, because my family really likes the that horror podcast, really famous, the Magnus Archives.
Mm-hmm.
I don't listen to that one, but I listen to Stellar Firma, which is a comedy podcast they put out of also two brothers. I believe they're brothers that do improvisations on planet building. So it took me a minute to realize what was going on. After the first episode, I was left a little confused. But once you get to the premise of the show, and it's kind of the same thing over and over again, it was really, really hilarious, and a show that I really liked and made me laugh. So those are my podcasts.
Chris only listens to sibling-based comedy.
Chris, 5 years ago would have really recommended the Sklar Brothers.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they used to have a show called The Cheap Seats, and they have a podcast. I don't know if it's still out, but they used to talk sports, and they used to have a YouTube show. But yeah.
I do also listen religiously to the Always Sunny podcast, but I watch it, so I never think that it's a podcast.
Sure.
It's kind of weird. Like if you like our video podcasts, I kind of don't think of as podcasts as much. It's got a video element. podcast, I think purely like I always think like I'm in the gym listening to Patrick Chapin and Mike Flores tell me about 20 million decks I'm never going to build,
Sure.
right? Or I'm listening to like James Janice and his wife talk about like horror movies that I've never seen, right?
Yeah.
Like
And
they
I think that's kind of the thing for me too. Is my commute really like shortened, and I'm working from home a lot more. So I really transitioned from listening to podcasts to just like watching long form YouTube stuff instead.
right. Which of course I have way too many like hour long YouTube video rabbit holes
Yeah.
that I've gone
Yeah.
on. And then of course we got to shout out because I like praising people when they do a good job, right?
Yeah.
Drive to Work podcast is incredible. Every time I've listened to
Sure.
it, absolutely wonderful. Mark Rosewater, it's incredible.
Drive to my spare bedroom.
Yeah, now then when he does it live
Yeah.
and brings the car seat to the convention center to do the live Drive to Work podcast from his car seat to make it authentic, amazing. Such a great bit, and the insight in those podcasts is really good.
Yeah.
I don't listen like consistently, but I will always like when people tell me there was a really good episode, I'll listen, and I'm always happy to hear.
Yeah.
Uh,
Another good podcast I kind of like check in and out of every now and then is Fraudsters. It's a Spotify exclusive. They just kind of
oh,
they just kind of go through just like scam artists and stuff like that, and they just do like different theme seasons, things like that. So that's a good one. They're like 30-40 minute episodes, and they kind of break stuff up. If you want a really good just kind of self-contained podcast that's just like a single season, because it's an Australian podcast that was just like a kind of like a radio show that they did for like a few weeks. It's called Finding Drago,
nice.
or Finding Drago, and it's about just like this mysterious book that's like a sequel to Rocky 4,
Oh,
pre-Creed, just about like what happened to what happened to Drago after he lost,
oh my god.
and it's just like them trying to find who wrote this book.
And I got to end on my favorite podcast of all time. It's this really obscure one. They talk a lot about Donald Duck.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Like his jacket
sure.
He wears
Yeah.
a jacket, yeah.
or a vest. Some may call it a vest,
Some
right?
may call it a vest, yeah.
Well, it's,
Yeah,
it's a sailor shirt.
It's three guys just having fun, and every week they get together and they talk about Donald Duck's vest.
Yeah.
Chris has seen it.
You missed a level. You missed the Disney level. You missed the
Oh,
hey, you heard of Disney? You heard of
missed part
Donald
of the
Duck?
joke.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll tell you one podcast I don't listen to, and that's the Playing Arena podcast. They know what they did.
Shots fired.
All right, well, that will do it for everyone this week. Thank you all for tuning in. Always a blast. Share what other content creators you enjoy Magic-wise.
Yeah.
We always love plugging people. Of course, like I said, I don't watch a lot of Magic content right now, but I sure heck keep up with everyone. So we always want all of our friends to succeed. So
I used
make
to
sure
have a favorite YouTube show. There was a YouTube show ran by a guy that I knew that was
Don't you
just
say it.
really good, but it's
Don't you
long gone
talk
at this
about
point.
it.
So
all right, where can they find you on the socials?
hey, you can find me on Twitter if you so choose at its_Christmas, and Christmas has no T.
You can find me on Twitter, and you should choose and under at also Steve.
Also at The Island Resolves.
No.
You can find me on Twitter at Crew3 Podcast, and also running our YouTube page where I'm trying to upload our weekly video version of the podcast and trying to get some extra content out on there at least once a week. So be on the lookout for that, and that's Crew3 MTG over there. And of course, you can also find Ricky streaming about once a week over on our Twitch page at Crew3 MTG over there. So that'll do it. We'll talk to you all next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.